Sorry. Hello.
That's all right. Hey,
How's,
welcome.
how's it going?
Good, good. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Just looking over the slides on this PowerPoint.
Okay, you came prepared. That's good.
Did you who put this together?
I did. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. So, what I thought we'd do, Grayson, is just I'll share the screen. I'll take lead, but you feel free to interject or add anything that you find relevant or you think that you can add good context to, because I know that um, try to be very mindful. And I think mindful eating is very important. So,
Every day.
yep. So, let's see here. Okay, we've got most everybody on the call. Maybe a few people have yet to hop on, but we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm gonna well, I'll introduce what we're talking about today. Today's lesson is mindful eating. Um, I think it's a nice follow up to yesterday's lesson where Logan and Emily kind of talked about the different kind of eating styles that are out there, the different diets, if you will, or food lifestyles, or whatever you want to term them. Um, because this is kind of a similar thing, but a separate thing. Just eating mindfully can be a practice that kind of defines your eating lifestyle as well. And the nice thing about just being mindful of your food and practicing mindful eating is that it doesn't really you don't pigeonhole yourself to any specific type of uh, uh, diet or food plan or food group. It's more about just listening to your body and appreciating the food uh, that you have that you're consuming, and just being more in the moment when you're eating, and to draw more awareness to the decisions we make and our environment and the impact that those decisions that we make throughout our entire day really have upon our meal time. So it's a pretty deep topic, and I think there's a lot more to explore after what we talk about today. But this should serve as a good introduction to mindful eating, what it is, what it means. We already talked about mindfulness back in week one, so this is just kind of looking at uh, mindfulness again, but through the lens of nutrition. So Grayson is gonna help me out. He'll be interjecting, as he kind of let me silence my phone. Sees anything that resonates with him, and we'll get into it. So I'll share my screen and we'll start the presentation. I think that's the right one. All right. So day 11, mindful eating. We're more than halfway through the 21-day challenge. So that's a good accomplishment. Congratulations, guys. Are you guys ready for a controversial statement? I would actually argue that how we eat influences our health and well-being just as much as what we eat. And why I say that is because how we eat is a practice that kind of defines uh, our decision making and our awareness of food, and it really sets the foundation for. Sorry, my phone's getting blown up. For all that winds up, uh, basically for every nutritional decision we make, and everything that winds up going into our body. So when we practice mindful eating, uh, we give our brain time to recognize when we're full, which is very important. We tend not to overeat, which obviously is not overeating is a bad thing. We enjoy the experience of eating, and we're more likely to successfully change our unhealthy eating habits when we practice mindful eating. And also, we can identify if a new diet or nutrition plan is sustainable, because when we are in the moment and we eat mindfully, we can really fully connect with the food we're eating, and determine if it's something that we actually enjoy. I know that there are some people that when they're trying to lose weight, uh, they kind of look at food as fuel only, and while that is true to an extent, you have to find foods that you can actually enjoy, and actually have some sort of enjoyable experience consuming. Otherwise, you're not going to want to stick with that. It's not sustainable if it's not enjoyable, I guess, is the rule of thumb. So when we talk about mindful eating, we're basically trying to answer we focus on 6 key questions, which is, why do I eat? And we eat for all sorts of different reasons. So, it could be hunger, eating to hit nutrition targets, could be out of convenience or habit. It could be just eating, because of a social situation. Could be temptation. You see that, cupcake out there in front of you and you want to eat it. It could be tradition, like Thanksgiving is a great example of that. Could be emotions. Emotional eating is huge, and we'll talk about that in a little more depth. But there are all sorts of different reasons why we eat. And so it's important to, kind of start your mindful eating with understanding why. Why are you eating this meal? When do you eat? You want to eat when you're hungry is usually the best time to eat. But understanding, what is your hunger? Is it coming from physical hunger signals, or is it emotional? And then also planning ahead and determining when you're going to eat and blocking off time, allowing yourself the opportunity to slow down and practice mindful eating. Also focusing on what you're eating. Is what you're eating aligned with your goals? Are you enjoying it? Is it something that you actually look forward to eating, something that you want to eat? Because if you want to do something and you enjoy doing something, you're a lot more likely to stick with it over the long term. And also focusing on how your food makes you feel. Once you've eaten it, 30 minutes later, do you feel sluggish? Do you feel tired? If that's the case, then you probably should be eating something else. I know that Andrea is usually the person that does mindful eating talks. She's out right now, so I guess it's kind of fallen on me, but I know Grayson can help too. So, but she has a story that she tells. Basically, she when she started practicing mindful eating herself, she realized that she was eating the same thing every single morning. She had a bowl of oatmeal, and I don't know exactly how she prepared it, but she sat down and one day she just realized that she didn't like it at all. She was tasting it. She didn't like the taste. She didn't like the texture. She didn't like, really anything about it. And it kind of, hit home. She's like, I'm just doing this out of habit. It's just what I eat. So she mixed it up and she started eating something else because, she was starting to pay more attention. Also focusing on how we eat, making sure that we slow down and mentally check in beforehand, especially with emotional eating. It's very, very important. Chewing more, eating less, setting your fork down in between bites to slow down and allow your body to actually send those hunger or those satiation signals to the brain so that you're not overeating. I think is very important. Focusing on how much, paying attention to portion size is very, very important, especially since, we live in America and portions, kind of seem to get out of whack often, supersize me. And, whenever you go out to eat, typically they serve the food on a platter and, it's probably quite a bit more than you really need. And just working on eating just enough to satisfy your hunger. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in subsequent slides. And also where you're eating is important too. Creating a healthy eating environment, having a dedicated space, sitting at a table, not eating on the couch in front of the TV. Those are important things because you want to sit down, focus on the food, remove distractions so that you can fully enjoy your food, but also so that you can make sure you're paying attention to all these different things that you should be, like your portion size, like the taste of the food and the smell of the food and really enjoying the moment. Grayson, do you have anything you want to?
Well, I was gonna say, we're talking about portions and stuff. If we're mindful eating, we should be avoiding any type of place that's going to be putting out portions like that, right? Or if anything, you should be avoiding going out to eat altogether. You should be doing it. You should be preparing it on your own, having it ready to go for your entire week. That way, you don't even have to worry about any type of excuse coming in for why you would fall off track of whatever goal or diet you're working with. That's a big one, because once you start getting into the rhythm with your meal prep and your consistency goes from a month to 3 months to 6 months, I mean, what happens with the body, it's crazy. It's a big deal. I mean, being prepared and then avoiding going to any type of place where they're giving you processed food or big baskets of bread out in front of the table, stuff like that. You just should avoid it altogether.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think that comes down to a lot of it. Yeah, is like what you're eating, and really paying attention to what you're eating and making sure you're eating real food. That's definitely a good rule of thumb. The processed stuff. A lot of times when you really pay attention, you're going to notice if you do kind of keep track of how you're feeling after you eat certain foods, a lot of that processed stuff is going to cause many of us to have some ill effects afterwards, feel worse, feel sluggish, feel, uncomfortable. Well, and then also just don't eat from the bag. I guess that was on there too. I think kind of one of the kind of foundational elements to eating mindfully is to be able to attend to your level of hunger and understand, how that, where you're at any point throughout the day, how that really that primal need that we have for eating and that hunger that we have influences us in a number of different ways. So to kind of take a moment and look at this hunger fullness scale, it's a scale of 1 to 10 that goes anywhere from starving, feeling weak and dizzy, all the way to like being overly stuffed and so full that you feel sick. We tend to recommend that you stay in this kind of 4 to 7 range from when you're beginning to feel hungry. Maybe you get down to 3, where you get like a little hunger pang, but you always want to respond to that if you start to notice that you're that hungry, up to about like a 7, at the most when you finish a meal. And the reason that we want you to keep yourself in that 4 to 7 range is because it helps you make better food choices. It helps you regulate your portion control, because you're not ravenous when you sit down to eat and stuffing your face. Because if you're at a 2, very hungry, irritable, low energy, your stomach's growling a lot, you're not very likely to sit down and say, okay, I need to take a bite and put my fork down between the bites. You're going to be stuffing your face, and when you do that, you tend to easily overeat, and you can kind of get into this vicious cycle where you go from a 2 all the way up to like a 9, and then you're so full and you feel sick and you really don't even want to think about food, but your body is digesting that food, metabolizing that food, and then all of a sudden you didn't want to think about food, but now you're starting to get really hungry again and you're back down to the 2. So if you don't kind of be conscious of this and be attentive to it, you can kind of get into a scenario where you do make poor food choices because you're not honed in to the signal that your body is sending to your brain. And I think we have this tendency, and I definitely do, to kind of think, well, we've got all this technology and these tools and these things that we have ways to log your food and track this and track that, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a wearable that would like beep at you every time you should eat? But we don't need that. We have that built in. We just have to pay attention to it. It's the ultimate guide to when we should eat and how much we should eat. We just need to be mindful, and our body will tell us. So emotional eating is a big barrier to I think mindful eating, because when we're in a heightened emotional state, it's very hard for us to slow down and be to clear our head and become mindful and be in the moment. And I think that there are a lot of people that suffer from emotional eating in one way or another. And I think often we think, emotional eating is, related to stress or depression, but it can be a number. I mean, it could be almost any emotion. It could be stress, or it could be sadness, but it can also be anger or boredom or fear or guilt or just being tired. All of these different feelings, can trigger emotional hunger, is what we call it. And it's very deep seated. It's something that it's hard to change, because it occurs when these kind of old circuits in our brain are triggered. And so, it's very difficult for us to stop that from happening. All we can do is to try to be aware of when it does happen. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but stress spelled backwards is desserts. So obviously there's some sort of correlation there. Don't eat too much dessert, but you can certainly eat some. But to move away from emotional eating, we're not going to be able to stop emotional hunger from occurring. It's beyond the scope of what we are focused on here. But one thing that you can do is you can check in before you eat, and be mindful of your emotional state, and know that if you're worked up and you have a tendency to get that emotional hunger, that it may be something that is a need that really should be filled with something other than food. And once you do that, if you also try to tune into your physical hunger signs and say, okay, is my stomach growling? Do I feel like I'm actually physically hungry? And if the answer to that is no, then maybe try to do something else. Do a stress management exercise, or some other sort of outlet, journaling, whatever that might be for you, to just do it for 5 minutes, and then see if you can lower that emotional state. If you're still hungry, then it's probably time to eat. But if not, then that was emotional hunger, or hunger feelings triggered by your emotional state rather than actual physical cues. And then also just try to shift the focus away from food. Food is a very complex kind of concept for a lot of us. It has a lot of baggage for a lot of people. So, when we are feeling emotionally hungry, or when we're feeling hungry, if you can kind of shift that focus and shift it internally, shift it to yourself, and see if you can just get into a different frame of mind and see if that hunger persists. And then if you do still feel hungry, focus on your health. So if you take that time and you do a 5-minute check-in, or a little exercise to try to change your emotional state, and you're still hungry, then maybe instead of that donut, which is what you gravitate towards when you are wanting to stress eat, because that's comforting food, focus on your health. Have an apple instead, or have something else that is still something you enjoy, but taking that little pause can allow you to make much better decisions and focus on your health. And I actually wanted to open this up because I think we have some people that have emotional eating, and I didn't know if anybody wanted to share, maybe if they have any strategies that have worked for them or anything like that. No, well, that's okay. Grayson, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, actually, I haven't really thought about a lot of things you just said, but I do know some emotional eaters. It's a vicious cycle, and it doesn't sound fun, but listening to what you're just saying, I might do that sometimes myself. So that's definitely something you need to pay attention to. I on the next slide I'd seen with the mindless eating, it says it's astounding how much people can eat when we aren't paying attention.
Yes.
And yeah, you really do have to pay attention to some of these things. It's very important.
Yeah, so mindless eating is another big problem. I think with our society in general, and like the kind of best, most relatable example of mindless eating is when you go to the movies and you get the big tub of popcorn, and you're just like, you're watching the movie and you're eating the popcorn, and then like halfway through the movie, it's like your hands hitting the bottom of the tub, and you're like, wait, who just ate that? Like, I don't remember it. I got all the calories and none of the enjoyment, because I was totally engrossed in something else. And they actually did an experiment at Cornell University where they gave two groups of people at a movie theater popcorn. They gave, well, there were actually, I guess there were four groups. So there were two groups that they gave medium-sized tubs of popcorn, and two groups that they gave large-sized tubs of popcorn. But the kind of the variable here is that half of the people, half of the medium size and half of the large size, they had 14-day-old stale popcorn. So not very good. And the other half had fresh popcorn. And they tracked how much each group ate. And what they found is that the people that had the large tub of popcorn invariably ate more than the people that had the medium tub of popcorn. I believe it was, I think I actually have the numbers. So it was the people that had the large tub of fresh popcorn ate 45% more than the people who had the medium-sized tubs of popcorn, and the people that had the large tubs of stale popcorn ate 33.6% more than the people that had the medium fresh tubs of popcorn. So it just goes to show you that, you know, we really don't have any kind of concept of what this stuff even tastes like, or any sort of you know, way to register what we're doing when we're engrossed in something else. If we've got the bag, if we've got the tub in front of us, our kind of reflex is just to eat it. And so we really, really want to avoid that. So next time you go to the movies, which, you know, may not be for a long time here, maybe skip the popcorn because it's a really good example of how to set yourself up for mindless eating. They also did an experiment where they would refill. Well, they had two different groups of people that were eating soup. And the researchers gave one group of people a bowl of soup that they would have to go and ask for refills. They said, you can eat as much as you want. And then they gave another group of participants a bowl of soup that they would just come back and refill without prompting. Just, you know, they noticed it was getting low, they refill it. And the people that had the refilling bowls of soup ate 73% more than the people who actually had to ask. And they didn't. And when they asked the participants how much they thought they ate or how full they felt, there was no noticeable difference, no significant difference in between those two groups. So we don't really even, I think we have a tendency sometimes to measure with our eyes rather than our stomach. And it's a very powerful effect. So, so we really want to move away from mindless eating. So, you know, what that means is just, you know, number one, don't eat while multitasking. You know, it's very hard to eat mindfully while you're you know, doing something else. Don't eat from the bag. You know, if you do have to have some potato chips because that's your thing, you know, figure out how much you want to eat and put it in a bowl and let that be it. Don't take a big bag and, you know, sit on the couch and start eating, because, you know, all of a sudden you're going to look down and you're like, where'd the bag go? Like what happened? And just practice mindful eating, these things that we're talking about. So the more mindful eating strategies that I think are really important is to track your food. So there have been a lot of studies that have done on people who have tracked their food. And generally they show about double the weight loss if they're looking at people who are trying to lose weight that actually track their food, whether that's in a food journal or on an app or whatever it might be. Just that act of tracking your food has been proven to be like the single most effective tool that you can use to build awareness and to make better choices. We tend to eat better food and less of it when we track what we're eating versus when we don't. And I think a lot of the anecdote, a lot of what you guys have said, what I've seen in our community really supports that. A lot of people have said, yeah, I've done really good when I've tracked my food, and then I stop and, you know, it's not as good. So we obviously, you know, we're trying to get you to track it and build that awareness. We don't know that, you know, it's necessarily something people need to do forever, but if you do notice that you're starting to gain some weight, it's a great tool to have, you know, in your toolbox to go back and say, okay, I know that if I start tracking my food, I'll figure out what I'm doing wrong, or I'll figure out what I need to tweak. It's a really, really great strategy. And one thing that I think some of you have hit on is the pre-planning your meals, pre-logging your food even. That really sets you up with a solid plan for the day. You already know what you're getting or what you should be getting. And then if you deviate from that, then you just adjust your log. But I mean, that's kind of taking tracking and planning and putting it together. And I think it's a really, really, really effective strategy. Also, staying hydrated is important. Dehydration The signals of dehydration are easily mistaken for signals of hunger. And if you do think you feel hungry, sometimes that's just a good kind of a little hack is to just drink some water instead and see if maybe you're really not experiencing physical hunger as much as you're just experiencing thirst. Because it's kind of easy to conflate the two. It's hard to tell them apart sometimes. Choosing appropriate portion sizes is very important too. I know, Grayson, I've seen you at Chipotle, so I know you do go out to eat sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's nice because you see exactly what you're getting and stuff. But, if you do go out to eat, which, we're not really doing a lot of right now, which is probably a good thing on the whole. But if you do go out and you get like a really big, meal served to you, one strategy that I know has worked for a lot of people that I've worked with is just to take half of it and put it in a to-go box, like right from the get-go. Because a lot of us, even myself, and especially in prior generations, kind of grew up with this mentality of like, you got to be part of the clean plate club. You gotta don't let any food go to waste, right? So if you see this giant, meal served to you, your inclination is just you want to eat. You almost feel like compelled to eat it all, even if it's more than you need. And it almost always is. So just being aware of that and not being afraid to just say, hey, can you put half of that in a to-go box for me? And then you have another meal. You kind of like double it. Using smaller plates is important too, because like I said, often we kind of measure food with our eyes rather than our stomachs. And plates kind of, if you look at like the history of plates, they used to be smaller and they've kind of grown in size on average. And the same amount of food on a small plate, looks much more kind of robust and like a bigger, more filling meal than the same amount of food on a plate that's 2 inches more in diameter. So smaller plates can be one little thing that you can use to kind of control your portion sizes. And then controlling your environment is really, really important. And so this kind of goes back to being mindful, not just while you're eating, but being mindful throughout your whole day. And don't shop on empty is a really important tactic. And also don't make your shopping list on empty. And what I mean by that is if you're at like a 3 or a 2 or even a 4 on the hunger fullness scale, you shouldn't be trying to figure out what you should buy, and you really shouldn't be walking around the store and looking at all these things that now look like delicious because you are so hungry. It really can cause you to make much worse decisions, and it's very important because you want to keep healthy foods at home. It's one of the most important things you can do, because even before COVID-19, when they've done studies on this, they found that on average 72% of all the food that we eat is food that we buy at the store. It's food that we have at home on hand. It's not from restaurants. It's not from, cafeterias or, whatever. It's food that we have at home. Now, obviously that number is a little different for each person, but that's the average. So, and now I would argue that, COVID-19 has probably driven that up significantly because we're not going out to eat as much. So it's really important that we make our shopping list when we're at a good space, on that hunger fullness scale. If you can shop online and then just go pick up the groceries, even better, because retailers are very clever. They set up these displays to, entice you to buy things, on an impulse. And usually they're not like carrots, right? I've never like snagged some carrots and been like, oh man, this is great. These look delicious. No, it's like, they're potato chips or whatever, things that aren't very good for you. And then if you have sweets for the kids or grandkids or spouse or whatever, it's not that practical always to say like, just purge your pantry and get rid of everything. Although we did tell you to purge your pantry. That's more just kind of an exercise in awareness. Move them and hide them. There's a study that they did, and where it was in Cornell's Food and Brand Lab also, where they just looked at people and their weight and their home, their kitchen, the way that it was laid out. And they found that people that had boxes of cereal on their counter, just sitting there on their counter rather than like in a pantry or a cupboard, weighed on average 20 pounds more than their peers that didn't have cereal boxes in sight. And people that had soda, even diet or regular, it doesn't matter, on their counter, like sitting out, weighed 24 to 26 pounds more than people that didn't. And on the flip side, they found that people that had a bowl of fruit sitting out weighed on average 13 pounds less. So, and there's a lot of research that backs that up. It's you know, having the convenient thing and the thing that your eyes are able to see being something healthy can make a really big difference. So even if you can't get rid of the sweets, even if you can't get rid of them because you want to have them on hand for, special things or whatever, that's fine. But just put them in a place where they're not, they're out of sight, because it's kind of the out of sight, out of mind, type of thing. And then work on just developing a healthier relationship with food. Food is something that, there's a lot of emotional attachment and a lot of, it can be a loaded topic for a lot of people. People have disordered eating. People have, almost some people have like food trauma. Just making sure that, we start to look at food in a way that, we can help us live a better life. And, there's a really good TED talk on that I've got linked here, and I'll post it in the group, but it's just it's a lady who, went from disordered eating, and then she studied dietetics because I think she said something like she wanted to find, new and creative ways to torture herself. And then, she kind of realized that, she needed to kind of reframe the whole way she looks at food. So, that's that can definitely be a big part of, making a healthy lifestyle change, depending on kind of what your current relationship with food is like. So that's what I've got. We've got some tasks today. Just make a post in the community related to mindful eating. Continue to track your 3 nutrition related changes from Monday's lesson, and respond to at least one other person in the community, and watch today's lesson, which you already did. So you're at least a quarter of the way there. Do you guys have any questions? Sorry, I talked a lot. Grayson, do you have anything you want to add, man?
I was just going to say, no soda, and make sure when you're going grocery shopping, you stay to the outside. Stay away from the aisles as much as you can. That way you're away from all the boxes and bags of crap that you guys don't need. It's super simple, right? It's very simple. It's the only way it becomes unsimple is if we give ourselves excuses. So don't give yourself any excuses. I gotta go though. Nathan, I got a client.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you guys for letting me come on. We'll see you later.
All right. Do you guys have any questions? I feel like I talked a lot.
That was a very useful session, Nathan. Very well done. I think for me, one of the most difficult, one of the really horrible things about about emotional eating is the feeling after you've succumbed of total failure yet again.
Yeah.
And what it does to your confidence in actually meeting your goals. So.
Well, yeah, and that really makes it a vicious cycle, right? Because then you feel more inclined to drown your sorrows with more food. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean it's a very vicious thing, that emotional eating. Sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here so we can see you. Or did I already do that?
No,
no, I didn't. Okay, sorry. But yeah, no, that's a great observation, and you're absolutely right. So just I would recommend that try to do that, just a little check-in if you feel like you've got that urge to eat, and really if you feel like if you stop and you say like, do I want the donut or do I want the apple? If you really want the donut, then maybe you're not that hungry, and maybe it's more emotional. If you want the apple, then you probably are hungry, because that has nutritional value, right? And the donut does not. So.
It's not really what you want. It's what you're going to agree and decide to eat.
Right. Well, sure. There's some of that too. Yeah. There's sometimes you just have to, make the healthy
except for Rosalind, only the real skinny people tend to be those who don't really care about eating that much, who eat because it's fuel rather than who eat as one of the main joys in life.
I love eating personally.
Yes. Yes.
And so I have lost like 30 pounds over the last 6-7 years. So it's been very slow. But for me, I enjoy cooking as well. So I do try to make it a daily experience and that I love. I love getting out my eggs and scrambling them and adding my stuff. And I make time to sit down by myself and enjoy my meal. So for me, for me, it's just a journey. I'm always trying to figure out what works for me.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm actually going to suggest if we can continue this 21-day challenge kind of like forever, because for the first time in years, I have had more than 2 days of actually not grabbing candy every time I go past it. I have been incredibly observant and good about my eating. It's just
Good for you, Linda.
I'm puzzled.
That's great. Well, we'll see what we can do. Yeah, we could maybe still do like a Zoom
Just kidding.
meeting or something. I don't know. We're going to be pretty exhausted after the 21 days is over.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a good idea. Anything else, guys?
Another great presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I don't know if you could tell at the beginning, I was like a little deer in the headlights. I'm not used to giving that presentation, but I'm glad it was beneficial.
Nice to see everybody again.
You too, Linda.
See you.
Bye. See you, Rosa.
Okay, bye.
Guys.
Good job. Thank you.
Bye.